Hello. Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Thursday Charla. It is Thursday, July 28th, I think, today. I should probably double check that. Ooh, it's 29th. Whoa. Good thing I checked. Hi. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome, welcome. I'm going to give everybody a couple of minutes. Give Mars a couple of minutes to hop on. Hang tight with me. We'll get this thing started. So, I actually put some makeup on today. Marcella always shows up with great looking makeup, and I thought I would play around and do the same thing, which I never do. And I'm so excited. You guys see it? It's green and yellow. I never do that, so I'm pretty stoked. I feel like if like 13-year-old Tanya was going to go to a party, this is the look that she would have gone with. Not that I had any friends then, you know, that's the thing. There we go. Thank you.
Hey! Look, P.S. We're matching.
Oh, we are.
Yeah, we are, and like not like we did anything to like get in touch about this. So I feel like it's really awesome. You never do your makeup. Sorry, I noticed it on Facebook earlier. Yes, no, it looks amazing.
So
yes.
So as soon as I did it, I was like, I forgot that you were going to see it on like Facebook or Instagram in my stories. So as soon as I did it, I wanted to like message you to be like, look what I did. But then I thought I would surprise you. And then I posted it and you saw it anyway.
But I didn't even see it. And now that I see the colors, I'm like, we're actually matching. Like, that's really weird. Yes. That's so crazy. What palette did you use?
Okay. So, do you remember how I got like a BoxyCharm subscription?
Yeah.
And they like billed me for the next one before I could cancel it. Yeah, so they sent me this palette by Anastasia Beverly Hills.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's a great expensive product. I'm really happy for you. Aranya, did you actually get the Juvia's Place too? Like, look girl, I have Wahala palette on my eyeballs. Anyway, on my eyelids I should say. They're not actually on my eyeballs. That would be very painful. And would not stick. But anyway, hope you got stuff, Aranya. So anyway, it's crazy that things are, you know, the way that they are with makeup. Makeup is fun to play with, but other things in life are not. Just kidding. Hi, Z. I think Tanya went to go grab the makeup palette. I'm so obsessed. I'm on the waiting list for one of them. Which one did you get, girl?
Sorry, what?
Oh no, I was just talking to Aranya because Aranya like messaged me the other day and she was like, I'm at Juvia's Place and everything's on sale. I was like, oh my gosh, what did you get? So show me your palette.
Okay, so
you do awesome.
Okay, so so anybody who knows me knows that I like cannot be bothered with makeup. My makeup almost always looks the same, and I'm all like basic. I just want to look like bright and put together. And during season, I'm just like, that's work. Oh, I knocked something over. So I got this. Okay, so first off, this is not like a plug for.
No, we're just talking about makeup because we like makeup. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm so excited. You guys want to see? This is called the Alberta Beverly Hills Norvina Collection.
Ooh.
Huge palette. Do you see it?
Gorgeous.
Okay, and it's got colors that like. Okay,
Show me. Okay, sorry. I'm like, fuck politics. Just kidding. Oh my. Those greens. It's
got pink, it's got yellows. So
oh my gosh.
I'm wearing this one.
Gorgeous.
And I think I'm wearing this one.
Oh, gorgeous.
And I'm wearing one more, but I don't remember.
A goldy one, I would assume.
This one.
Oh, of course. Yes. Oh, that looks so pretty. I love it. Look at you doing all these things. Hey, Robbie. Nice to see you.
Hi. And okay, here's the other thing that they sent me. They sent me this powder bronzer, which is great because Javier he's a mono travieso who arruinó my really nice bronzer.
What did he do with it?
he was in the bathroom and he was playing with it, and it's fine. It was just like una travesura that little kids do, but like, I have nice things, and I can't like go buy another bronzer.
Yeah.
It got discontinued. So if you guys, if anybody wants any good deals on makeup, Marc Jacobs Beauty is being discontinued at Sephora, and everything's on sale. And it's honestly, they're great products.
Yes, actually, I have a few things that I want to buy from them. Okay, thank you. Wow, learning so much about makeup. Not the intention of this like Charla, but still, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll get to the good stuff in a couple of minutes, guys. Let me just go through the shit that they sent me. 1 minute. Okay, so they sent me this bronzer. It's funny. So I was showing Shadik today. Well, we were chatting. And I was like showing him, he's like, ooh, I like it.
Yeah.
That's the bronzer they sent me, which is great because Javier wrecked my other one. They sent me this like setting spray.
Ooh, gorgeous.
He said, I'm like, I want to look dewy. And they sent me this like kabuki brush. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I'm going to do makeup things.
You can do.
Oh, contour. That's work.
It's honestly, I love contouring. Contouring is like my favorite.
And I got this like really great mascara.
Is it Anastasia as well or no?
Yeah, it's all Anastasia. They sent me like, really like nice products. They also sent
NBD.
me. Oh my god. I know. It's like being fancy.
Yeah, but for real.
So yeah, so that's all that I got. I also got an eyebrow pencil, but it's in like taupe, and I was like, that's not gonna work for me.
No.
So I think I'm gonna gift it to someone. I've got someone in mind that I think would really like.
That's so sweet. That is so sweet.
Yeah, and then that's the last time I'll ever have really expensive makeup ever again because I have no money to spend on expensive makeup. This shit.
Whatever. Don't worry about it now. Like you're allowed to want to get pretty things. Yeah.
This alone is like a $78 palette.
Yeah. No, I know.
It's insane. It's insane.
I know. You go to Sephora and it's like $300 later.
I know.
Yeah, no. That is why I do not go to Sephora.
I look glowy and radiant.
You always look good. Remember this. I hung out with a friend and their little child today, and like I made the mistake of saying like, oh, I'm going home now because I want to look pretty, and I was like, that's not what I wanted to say. Like I didn't want to say it that way, frame it, because like it's just like problematic language, and like he had been saying the word like no, he was playing a game on my phone where like one of the characters like you're gonna be ugly for life. So I was like, yeah, no, I need to stop using these terms and stuff. So anyway, so I love makeup though.
Oh, Robbie says I don't know anything about contouring.
That's okay, Robbie. You don't need it. You have like those nice like the steel like the cheekbones. You don't need it. You're fine. You're fine. Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, no, we do have a few things that we want to talk about. Do you want to give it a few more minutes, or do you want to get into the nitty-gritty?
No, let's get into it. It is it's 8:09 right now. Anyone who people will just trickle in and out as we normally do. So couple of things that I've been thinking about.
The government.
Mars, you and I did not discuss this beforehand, but it occurred to me that in all of our Thursday charlas that we have done, we have never done I don't think we've ever done a land acknowledgement, have we?
No, we haven't, no.
Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to take a minute.
For sure, yeah.
To do that, because I think it's important, and I, want to get in the habit of doing it. So I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that I am a settler in Amisquichiswaskahagan in Treaty 6 territory on land which is a historical home of the Nahiwak, the Nitsitapi, the Ayahinakodabi, the Soto, the Dene, the Métis, and many other indigenous peoples. And as a settler, as someone whose story is written in displacement, I have I feel a certain kinship with indigenous peoples who are experiencing an ongoing genocide on their own land and on their own historical territory. So I am actively committing to challenging and dismantling practices of colonialism and white supremacy. And fully acknowledge that it is an ongoing process that requires ongoing accountability, and that we may not always get it right, but we are always going to do our best to make sure that we honor that, and honor that we are all treaty peoples, and honor those treaties as best we can, and advocate and hold our government accountable to do the same. So
thank you. That's wonderful, and I can't believe that we never did that. That's
I know.
horrible.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to be more cognizant of that. And I actually realized it when I saw that there was like a Dave Berta podcast that I don't love Dave Berta, but there was a Dave Berta podcast that I don't hate Dave Berta. I just,
Sorry. Okay.
That Amarjeet Sohi was on the show, and the first thing he did was do a land acknowledgement. And, it sounded to me like Dave Berta is not in the habit of doing one, which is not like that's not a character indictment. It's just an observation. And Amarjeet Sohi was like, before we get into it, I really want to make sure that we do land acknowledgement. And I just thought that was so lovely. It made me realize that we have also not done land acknowledgements on our Thursday Charlas, and I think it's important to do that. So,
you know what? Like, let's commit here and now. Like, we're gonna do one every time that we start our Charlas. Like, I think it's super important to do it, and not just like talk the talk and walk the walk, but also do these things that should be common practices whenever you have like an audience.
Acknowledgement is like, it's such a low
bar. Yeah, super low bar. But hey, like, it's important. And honestly, like, we should acknowledge that we are, inadvertently propagating, practices. And like, you're right, we are definitely in charge of our own unlearning and our own learning and our growth. So yeah, I am very committed to doing this from now on. Good girl. I love it.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Okay.
Hola,
so
Guatemalan in the house. Guatemalan in the house. Woot woot. Yeah. Makes amazing murals. Anyway, sorry.
Okay, so it got so one of the things that we wanted to talk about today, there's a lot happening at the provincial level in terms of like cuts.
Oh Jesus, not just cuts, Tanya. I'm so sorry. Not just cuts, Tanya. Motherfucking Hinshaw. Oh, you know that I'm not a fan of hers. You know that I'm not a fan of hers. We've talked about this, and I've never really gone on record. But fuck you, Hinshaw. Sorry, I just needed to get that off my chest, because what the hell? Our province, like the fact that we're no longer like enforcing like the masks on public transit, like I can't get over it. I cannot get over it. And like, seriously, like, her laissez-faire, like, stupid, laissez-faire, her laissez-faire nature when, like, the stupid Cargill, not the stupid, like, the plant was stupid, but, like, the workers were, like, having, like, all those deaths and stuff, and she was so blasé and so unbothered by the deaths and the fact that she blamed, anyway, sorry, I'm, like, jumping all over the place, but, sorry.
Why don't we start by, like, unpacking it? Okay. So, there's also, I mean, the government has announced that they will no longer be doing contact tracing, which is dangerous. People who are double vaccinated are dying of the variant. They have died of the variant. Now, it's worth noting that it's like a really high percentage, I think it's like 98% or 99% of people who wind up in emergency with the Delta variant have been fully vaccinated. So that's a really important thing to note. But like, I have an 8-year-old. He has not been vaccinated. He could not be vaccinated.
Exactly.
And, we're relaxing all of the restrictions in order to kind of like stimulate like business and try to go on, make a little bit of money, stimulate the economy a little bit, but like, we're not ready for it.
No.
And we're going to pay for this. We're going to pay for this. Y nos va a costar carísimo. So Yeah, and in the meantime, we are experiencing significant staff shortages. I think it's like St. Albert and Leduc hospitals have had to close down beds due to staffing shortages, and the government is like, "Oh, why is this happening?" And I'm like, maybe it's because you came in like as premier and like we're not even like trying to tiptoe around the fact that you were actively trying to dismantle any remnant of the work that and the progress that the NDP had made. And we're like restricting union activities and alienated doctors. There was a mass exodus of like doctors and nurses here in the province, and now we are seeing a 63% increase in healthcare job vacancies. That we saw a 63% increase in healthcare job vacancies in the first quarter of 2021, according to the Edmonton Journal. That is, hi. So that is terrible. And we also, and one of the things that we're hearing, and this is ultimately going to be used to like prop up the argument that this is why we need, private companies to come in and alleviate some of like the backlog that we have. Even just getting in to see a family doctor is taking forever. The lineups are super long. But the problem is right now, the AUPE is fighting cutbacks that are happening. They were justified when the government passed Bill 32, which was like a major revision of like labor practices here in the province, like a huge overhaul. And
which is linked in our link tree, by the way. We made sure to link it, like kind of like not a dissemination, but a breakdown of Bill 32. So if you guys are welcome to read it. Sorry, Tanya, keep going.
No, that's okay. So it's worth noting that many of these cuts and the problems that these workers are experiencing are a direct result of the changes that came in with Bill 32. And so there's a company right now, the AUP is fighting a rollback, a pay rollback for employees of a company called Extendicare. Extendicare is a privately owned company. They are a long-term care company for seniors. And here's the thing. In 2020, Extendicare, wow, I'm struggling. Extendicare paid out $29 million to shareholders. Now, during the same period, Extendicare's division ParaMed received $82.2 million from the Canadian emergency wage subsidy, right? And so the company has said that the government funds went to long-term care workers and was not used to fund these like dividends, right? And so this is like a great example of government propping up these like private businesses when they're rolling back services. Funding to municipalities has been cut. Different like programs, investments that we were looking at, even in the provincial level, have been rolled back. So this is like pretty horrifying. Now, Extendicare operates on a national level, right? But obviously they have to operate under labor laws, that are unique to each independent province. Okay, so they are following Alberta Health Services lead with this 4% rollback. They're proposing, basically in the deal that they're trying to negotiate, they're proposing like a 4-year collective agreement that with zero wage increases for like a 4-year period, and then ultimately culminating in a 4% rollback, right? So the other thing is that they only want to pay 85% of your hourly wage when you take sick time, right? And they're allowed to do that now. They also want to reduce their contributions to group benefit plans, which had previously been negotiated and agreed to. They want to reduce extended health contributions from 75% to 50%, so now people are paying more out of pocket for the healthcare plans. They are introducing a per visit cap of like $50 They're reducing dental contributions, reductions to the health spending account, and they want to reduce the contributions to your RRSPs, right? So AUPE is like actively fighting this, right? It's also worth noting that the majority of the people that are going to be affected are immigrants. In 2016, the most recent, which was the most recent census results, indicated that more than 30% of nurses, orderlies, and patient services associates were immigrants, right? With like and the majority of them were obviously women, right? So like across the board, across the country, we saw that in every province, it was at least 80% of these positions were filled by immigrant women, okay? Mm-hmm. This is really important to remember because the majority of these people across the country are also Black and Filipino, right? So so we see like this gross overrepresentation of Black and Filipino people filling these positions, and now they're having to take like, you know, pay cuts and that kind of thing. In Edmonton, Calgary specifically, they make up 62.4% of 62.4% are men, are female, and 25.7% are male, right? And in Alberta, across the board, we're looking at about 51.6% of immigrants work in these specific like roles, right? So, and we see this major overrepresentation where you know, 86% in Alberta are immigrants, but then you know, we don't see the problem is that many of these people are here on temporary visas as well, right? Many of them have post-secondary educations, mm-hmm. So they don't have the luxury of fighting these cuts and these rollbacks as efficiently and as aggressively as non-immigrants, right? So it's really, really complicated. It disproportionately affects immigrants. And we need to make sure that we're taking these things into consideration when we're advocating for legislative changes. Because the people that are most deeply affected, like they're coming from our own communities, right? Mm-hmm. So that is really shitty. And what we're looking at too, with some of the changes that were rolled out in Bill 32, that also really sucks, is overtime pay as being affected, right? So previously, if you were working more than 40 hours a week, right, you were entitled to overtime pay. Now, your employer is allowed to average out your hours over a 2-week period. So let's say you worked 60 hours one week and only 20 hours the next week. They don't have to pay you any overtime because they can average your hours that you worked over that 2-week period, which is like wild to me. Right? Because we know that there are going to be many employers like these fuckers at Extended Care that are going to be taking advantage of that when they're scheduling people, right? And they're not going to have the ability, like these workers are not going to have the ability to advocate for themselves or to fight, you know, some of these changes. So it's really important that if you have the ability to do so and if you have the capacity to do so, that you start advocating for those changes, because it can cause detrimental effects to these communities where these people, you know, especially when you're like a single parent and you're like an immigrant and you know, are working some of these jobs, you're already making less money and now you're facing like a wage rollback and you're working overtime hours, that'll affect your mental health, right? Mm-hmm. And we also know that, you know, if you are not able to parent your children as effectively as a POC and as an immigrant parent, you know, you are going to be disproportionately targeted by social services, right? And held to like a higher standard of scrutiny for, you know, not meeting, you know, some of these like minimum requirements, or like these, you know, if you're not able to like, you know, meet these like arbitrary platitudes that, you know, your teachers or your principals might hold you to, right? So it's a really complicated thing. There's like, it's pretty far reaching. And, you know, we need to be looking at this and making these criticisms through that like, you know, more broad lens, right?
Yeah. What did you say?
I just rambled on. I think I went on for like 20 minutes. I am very sorry.
No, that's okay. No, that's okay. No, you brought some awesome points up actually, because like another thing that I was trying to that I wanted you to bring up is also the fact that these restrictions will also affect like picketing and government I guess like negotiations. So the way that it's framed now will make it harder for unions to advocate for their workers and actually let them go to the picket. So it's going to be a lot of intimidation as well for a lot of these workers. And like Tanya was saying, a lot of these workers are POC who are already kind of, I guess, a little bit more trepidatious, I guess, like in terms of like whether or not they want to picket it or whether or not they want to be political. So it's very important also to note that a lot of these changes and a lot of the things that the Kenney government is doing is to kind of muzzle us. So, you know, we've had, you know, the restriction on like, what was it, Bill? Oh gosh, I always forget the number of the bill like that they passed so that people couldn't actually like protest peacefully.
Oh,
hold on, I'll Google this really quickly. Yeah, the anti-protest bill, which was, which, you know, it's funny because the reason why that one came up was because of all the, you know, water defenders and, you know, land defenders that are in Edmonton and Alberta in general. So it's very clearly like it's a measure that it has been put in place to muzzle those activists. And now they're trying to muzzle all of these, you know, all of these workers. And another thing that Tanya was talking about that I had wanted to bring up is also the fact that not only has it served like corporate and private companies, but it also has served their own cabinet and people who are related to their own ministry. The TELUS app, for instance, it's no secret that Chandra, what's Chandra's first name?
Tyler Chandra.
It is Tyler. Okay, he looks like a Tyler. But yeah, Tyler Chandra's wife is like a stakeholder in that company. And it's funny because I went to the doctor maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago because I need to get a checkup. And my doctor is not really political, but he actually had like a survey and a whole bunch of like paperwork talking about how all these changes to restrictions to doctors and all of these new apps are actually really, really detrimental to the health of the entire province. So I thought it was very interesting that they wanted, I guess, their patients to take a political stance. Because again, my doctor is not a political person. My dad likes him, but like my dad always tries to get him to talk politics, and he's not really, he never takes the bait. So I thought it was very interesting that he is starting to like, you know, share that documentation with people, because obviously it will affect the entire province, you know, if we do go to a privatized system, because those with money will be able to take better care of themselves, but those without will be, you know, dying. And do we really want a system like that? And talking about dying, what a great segue. When I found out about this, like the no contact tracing and, you know, not requiring students and teachers to mask and, you know, no longer requiring people to, you know, self-quarantine when they've been, you know, diagnosed with COVID, it honestly made me think of like death. And I know that that's very morbid, but I was like, sorry?
How do you mean?
People die from this like disease. Like people have died from COVID. And I was just like, so you're basically saying that things are hunky-dory, you know, but they're not. So I don't even, it really is unfathomable to me, because it actually makes it really, I can't relate. Do you know what I mean? Where like I'm trying really hard to understand why this is like the stance that they're taking, especially the chief medical officer of the province. Like her entire job is basically to ensure that we are medically, you know, looked after, that health-wise we are, you know, taken care of. And I know I've been, and I know we talked about this because I had always wanted to make like a more critical, take a more critical stand, like in regards to Hinshaw, but I never felt comfortable because I knew it was such an unpopular opinion. But ever since the beginning, she really has not been in our corner. And a lot of people argue, yes, well, she's muzzled because, you know, she needs to be like bipartisan. She has to be apolitical. And I'm like, it's not a political stance though. advocating for the well-being of the province and saying, hey, this is a health risk, or hey, this is the way that we can, mitigate people dying. And actually, actively looking at, and this is coming from like what happened at Cargill back in March of last year. I remember reading a really wonderful essay written by Bashir Mohammed, which I honestly, like, I share all the time and I quote all the time, because people, whenever I get into arguments with people on Hinshaw, I'm always just like, well, let me tell you. Because the thing is, like, I say she, but it wasn't just her. It was also like the provincial government. They reviewed the tapes to see like if Cargill was like following protocols, if like the staff was being properly taken care of. They weren't wearing the adequate PPE. They weren't distancing, and she gave it the go ahead. And then, when people started dying because of the outbreak that there were in these like warehouses, or in these chicken, oh God, ¿cómo se dicen?
Chicken farms?
The chicken farms? No, because they're also like
the plants.
Thank you so much. Yes, because ¿cómo se dice la cosa? Anyway, sometimes I forget English. Anyway, I remember reading, her say that it was because of the strong Filipino work ethic. Because, even though they were sick, they were going to work. And because they were Filipino, they were all living together. So they were infecting everyone with the virus. And also because they were all Filipino, they were carpooling together, meaning that they could. So it was all of these bullshit excuses, which is just a racist whistleblow, as we all know. But I mean, it was completely just passing the buck of responsibility and putting it squarely on the shoulders of the victims, when she could have done her part, the government could have done their part, the motherfucking owners of the plants could have done their part. Like, that's another thing. Like, when you consider the fact they would rather protect a company like Cargill and, other places where there have been breakouts, instead of advocating for the people who have died. It really boggles my mind. But honestly, I think it is just, I guess, a testament to the way that our province is now. I honestly feel very disheartened. And I know that I felt this way for quite some time. I love Edmonton. Honestly, like, this is the city that I grew up in, blah, 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 blah. But genuinely, like, this province and this city, and I guess it's the world. It's the world. We're all kind of just like going to hell in a handbasket. Like, we're all like, I think we're all just suffering from like this like big catechism where we're all kind of realizing how fucked up society is. And so we have people who are trying to like improve it and trying to make like things better. But then you have politicians in power who are doing everything in their power to muzzle us and to keep us down. And so, that's why it's important that we support organizations that are doing mutual aid. We support doctors who are talking out about these things. We support teachers who are actively speaking out against the horrible curriculum. We support, business owners who are willing to pay their younger staff like a livable wage, because it's those people. I love your face right now, because it's those people that we need to advocate for, because they're unfortunately in the minority, I feel. And maybe I'm just being cynical right now. Maybe I just haven't had enough, like, I don't know, of a good day or a good week, but I don't know, Tanya. I don't know. I'm just really fucking pissed off at this government, and I cannot wait until the next provincial election, because I'm hoping to God that the UCP is fucking kicked out. Like, honestly, like, conservative friends, please don't vote for them. I know a lot of you guys are very disheartened with them, and I'm speaking specifically to my conservative friends. I know you don't have many, but I do. But yeah, like, please don't vote for the UCP. Like, they're awful. They're awful. They've done nothing to protect our green space. They've done nothing to protect like our water. Like, they're doing everything. And I say our when I really shouldn't, because really we, like Tanya was saying earlier today, like, we are visitors in this land, really. And we need to be, and I need to be careful about my language. But sorry, I'm riled up. That is why I'm not being as thorough or as deliberate in my thinking or my speaking. But anyway, enough with my rant. On to you. Rant away, my friend.
So you touched on a couple of things that I want to expand on. So the as of like for anybody who is living under a rock, right, they told my boyfriend he didn't have to isolate because he tested negative the same time I tested positive. He is even allowed to visit me right now. What? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, sweetheart. I didn't want to call you out. But yeah.
Also, I'm so sorry that you're going through that. That sounds awful, and I hope you're okay. And if you need anything, please reach out.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm just saying that for like everyone to know. It is not like lip service. Like she means it genuinely.
No. For anybody, she says all good. The vaccinations are doing their job.
Thank the Lord. Yes, honestly.
So for anybody who is not aware, as of June, I think it's 2019. If you are a student, they can legally pay you $2 less per hour.
Mm-hmm. Legally.
Mm-hmm. This is a problem because there are many people who are single parents, who are also students,
mm-hmm.
who have to work minimum wage jobs at a coffee shop or whatever the case may be, in restaurants. And if they find out that you are a student, they can legally lower your pay because there is no cap on the age for which this applies. This is not a wage that only applies to like underage workers. And the assumption is, she said, Robbie Stave says, I didn't.
I wasn't calling you out, Robbie.
Some good things to think about, ladies. Great to see arguments with intelligence, even if I don't agree with all of them.
And honestly, Robbie, I remember that you didn't vote for the UTP, so it wasn't you that I was calling out. Okay, I love Robbie.
So the problem is that there's no like age cap on who that applies to, right? Yeah. If you're a student, your employer can legally lower your wage.
So you could be 45, you could be like 18, doesn't matter.
That's horrifying. Horrifying.
Yeah.
So there's
and also, I'm sorry, but like, isn't education going up? Like, is not the University of Alberta, constantly increasing tuition? Is not, Nate and Grant McEwen doing the same thing? Like, this is the thing. It's, if you expect students to work for less, but then you keep hiking tuition, how does that make sense? Like, make the math make sense. Because it ain't mathing.
Yeah. So here's the other thing. So we were talking about that. We were talking about, the other thing too is, statistically, the people who are working minimum wage jobs, I don't have the statistics available offhand, like off the top of my head, but the people who are working minimum wage jobs, I think they're like women, they average like 30 years of age, many of them are POC. And of course we know that, women of color face, ladies, what about nurses making overtime after 20 hours after declaring as part-time?
But right now, nurses and doctors aren't getting the same treatment. Like right now, nurses and doctors are basically getting, what's the word that I'm looking for? They're not getting the same, they're not entitled to the same things. I'm going to look for it right now, but,
okay.
They're facing, they're facing pay cuts. Can I
quickly address this really, really quick? Okay,
yeah,
so
for sure.
So as everything aside, the fact is that there are major staffing shortages in hospitals, which means that the workload for nurses and doctors is increasing. Now, for comparison, between staffing shortages prior to the Kenney administration making these rollbacks, we said that in the first quarter of 2021 there were 2,655 healthcare vacancies in the province.
by comparison, the average number of vacancies during the first quarters from 2016 to 2020 was 1,633, which means that, you know, the threats that nurses and doctors were making about leaving the province, they made good on those threats, right? There were caps on how much they're allowed to charge per visit, how long those visits are allowed to be, how many patients they're allowed to see in a single day. And then if you're working in the ER, right, or if you're working in an actual hospital, your patient load is increasing, right? Especially if you're like a supportive worker, right? If you're working as like an aide or an orderly or a patient service associate, right? And these jobs are like the least glamorous jobs that you can have. So I can't speak to nurses making overtime after 20 hours after declaring as part-time. The fact is that if you are a part-time nurse, then you should be allowed to only have to work part-time hours. You shouldn't have to compromise. You also should not have to worry about your job security because your responsibilities are being divided among like private employees that are being subcontracted
Exactly.
because of the roles and the vacancies. Because what that does is it further perpetuates the argument that we need to bring in more of these people to relieve some of the backlog, when if we had
adequate supports,
and if we had incentivized staying in the province, and you know, that we would have avoided the backlog, we would have avoided all of the bottlenecking that we experience in hospitals, we wouldn't be in this mess in the first place, right? So what this ultimately is a long-term plan to justify taking public dollars and putting them in private pockets, right?
Oh, and can we talk about the fact that the politicians in Alberta are some of the highest paid in the entire fucking country? So while they're making a 3% like a deduction on the pay of nurses, which again is not going to be helping incentivize people to stay in our province, then, and I know that people are always like, well, Jason Kenney and like his cabinet, they took pay cuts. Yeah, but they're still among the highest paid in the country. So when you consider that, 3% might not seem like a lot, but it is a lot, especially when you are working as a nurse. Like, nurses put up with a lot of crap, and nurses are sometimes more qualified than some doctors because of their experience and because of the things that they've dealt with. So I'm not saying that, you know, no, I am saying they deserve all the money. They deserve all the overtime. Honestly, we need to fight for our nurses, and we need to fight for our teachers. We need to fight for them. Sorry, keep going.
But it's not just our nurses. I mean,
no.
Looking at some of these employees that are having their hours cut because they are trying to, you know, some of these private companies like these aides, these healthcare aides, and these nurses and these nurse aides and patient service associates and orderlies and that kind of thing. If they're having their hours reduced because these private companies no longer want to have to pay them benefits because you only qualify for benefits if you're a full-time employee, and then on top of that you're facing a 3% wage decrease, right? This is, if you're making low wages and you have dependents, that 3% increase and the reduced hours that you now face is literally the difference between making or breaking families. And when you have that close proximity to poverty, that 3% means everything. And if you're making over $100,000 a year, you're not going to notice that 3%. But when you're only making $34,000 a year, that 3% hurts. And I can speak from experience that 3% hurts. So it should incense all of us.
It should, yeah, it should. Honestly, like, there's a lot of crap happening in our province. Like, you know, the curriculum is shit. There's like no incentives. Like, there's no harm reduction strategy. Like, we haven't even discussed that. We haven't even talked about the opioid crisis. We haven't talked about like the active war against our houseless community. This government is doing everything possible to make our province a shithole. And I say this quite seriously. I'm not using hyperbole right now. I am being genuine right now, because everything that they're doing is going to make it harder for people who are living close to poverty. It's going to make it much harder for them to succeed in life. It's going to make it much harder for people who are BIPOC. It's going to make it really hard for people who are, you know, single parents. It's going to make it a lot harder for everyone. Students, youth,
And again, like reminding everybody that BIPOC experience proximity to poverty that white people do not face at the same rate, right? Robbie says this all comes back to Kenney cutting corporate tax right before he made his other cuts, but the budget still isn't balanced. Okay, but the budget should not be balanced on the backs of the working poor. And that the gap between like the classes is widening. We're doing ourselves a long-term disservice because people are no longer interested. People don't have the luxury of pursuing higher education.
Exactly.
Jason Kenney lost $4 billion on a pipeline. $4 billion. This guy came in guns a-blazing when he took office and waged a war against everybody. He alienated everybody, and he has nothing to show for it. And the problem is not that he's inept as a leader. The problem is not, I mean, he's talking about equalization payments. We don't want to have to make these payments anymore. Bitch, you wrote that when you were a cabinet minister.
I'll agree to that.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You wrote that. And so
like, honestly, honestly, the things that he's done, let's just go through it. 4.7 billion corporate tax cut, 1.9 canceled carbon tax cut, 1.3 billion lost on KXL, 1.7 billion lost on rail contracts, $30 million war room. Largest, highest paid premier's office staff. We already talked about that. And a ballooning cabinet. Like, the list can go on, but we really need change. We need to change change government. If we don't change government, then like everything that this province is going to be like much worse.
Okay, but let's talk about how we achieve that, right? I would argue that one of the biggest detriments to our ability to have significant and meaningful change on the governmental level, I would say that like I will totally put that on the apathy of uninformed white voters. You know, we need to stop acting like, you know, Jason Kenney, his whole thing is like, oh, you know, he wants to like sell himself as like, you know, like an oil guy and a cowboy and all this. This is not the kind of guy who gets his hands dirty. Okay, I was married to a cattle rancher. I can smell a mile away. Jason Kenney does not get his hands. Okay, and you know, let's also and secondly, like this hyper masculine, you know, this hyper masculine trope that, you know, we're selling as if, you know, that's all Albertan culture is, and we have to pretend that Alberta doesn't have a culture is, you know, it's dishonest. It's intellectually dishonest. Alberta absolutely does have a culture, and that culture is built on white supremacy. That culture is built on the exploitation of migrant workers. That is built on the exploitation of the poor. You know, we talk about balancing budgets, but we don't talk about the cuts that facilitate that. And so this whole like socially liberal but fiscally conservative bullshit, all that basically means is that you are not invested enough in the demographics that suffer the most to, you know, who don't have the financial means to fund their the services that they require adequately out of pocket, right? You know, there is such a disconnect that you know, we can't, you know, reconcile the discrepancy between how much we're investing in these programs and who it affects. And again, as a reminder, they disproportionately affect communities of color, Indigenous communities, right? Super important to remember that. Black
women,
you know, like single parents, right? So like we can talk about balancing the budget, but we have to have an honest discussion about what that's going to cost. And by and large, the people who are most willing to balance the budget, you know, on an aggressive timeline are the ones who are going to be the least impacted by it, right? Because you come to my hood and you tell a single mom in my hood, that you wanna, I didn't realize, it took me a hot second to put two and two together. No. But you know, you come in here and you start telling a single mom in my hood that you know, her kids are not going to have access to like basic dental care because there are going to be cuts to, you know, health coverage, right? You know, that, you know, tell me that to my face. Tell me that to my face. And tell me that it's because you want to prioritize balancing the budget. Because you don't think that the playgrounds in my neighborhood are worth like maintaining, right? Where poor kids whose parents are working overtime, who, you know, can't afford childcare, right? Women literally cannot afford to go to work because the burden of child rearing still disproportionately falls on us. Right? And by the time you justify the cost of childcare, it doesn't make sense. You abandon your kids, right? And I don't want to frame it that way, but like,
No.
you know, if we think about what that
society regards it that way. Like, look at the moms who've been penalized because they left their kids in the car because they had to go to a job interview, or because they left them alone without a babysitter in a locked room. Like these, like obviously these horrible stories have happened. There are things that happen a lot in the US, unfortunately, but they affect women of color. And like Tanya's right, like that's the thing. We are definitely not prioritizing those people in our community. And that's the thing. We take care of one another, and it's up to us to advocate and make sure that we fight against that apathy, that we engage ourselves meaningfully, that we educate ourselves in the issues that matter, because it's not just about how it affects you or how it affects your neighbor. It's about how it affects everyone.
He says totally right. We cannot balance the budget on working people, but we do need to balance it. We can't hand our kids a huge deficit anymore than we can hand them a wasteland. For sure. You know what? That's totally fair. But you know what? I would, if I know that the choice is either handing my kids debt, and a shorter lifespan, because we cannot properly fund healthcare services, because pharmaceuticals that we rely on become like less and less accessible. Because, you know what I mean? That we wind up with stupider kids because people cannot be bothered to like invest in a good education system. You know, these investing in social programming requires money. And we can't start cutting back there because we want to justify getting in the black. Ralph Klein did that. Ralph Klein, by the way, as an aside, there was somebody started like a zombie Ralph Klein account back in like, did you see that?
I see that, yeah. And I was like, it was one of our recommended pages today, and I was like, oh, okay.
I laughed so hard. But like, Ralph Klein decimated the healthcare system. Ralph Klein decimated our education system, right? We cannot afford that anymore. And we already have, Alberta already has a culture that is hostile to people who are experiencing chronic poverty, right? And you know, and Alberta is like not such a great province that like, you know, if you're gonna like take away all of these like essential services, that you're gonna want to live here anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, we are not so culturally interesting or relevant or anything that, you know, if you're going to make it more challenging to be here, that it's like, oh, at least the weather is good, because it isn't.
Because it isn't. Exactly. Yeah, we've got nothing, honestly.
So, you know, it's like, you know, what is the, like, what are people here for if we can't even provide a basic standard of living that makes it worthwhile for people to stay? You know, like it doesn't make sense. And if we look at like migration patterns in, you know, across the provinces, Alberta's hurting right now. Alberta is hurting. Historically speaking, Alberta has seen a high influx of young workers who were coming out specifically to work on the pipeline, right? For the first time, like, we're seeing like negative migration in Alberta because it is not worth staying here. If we don't incentivize it, we won't even have basic workers like, you know, like we're seeing in the medical system, right? We're seeing these bottlenecks, and we're going to see that across a bunch of sectors. We cannot make it accessible for people to stay. And we know trickle-down economics is not a thing. That does not exist.
That doesn't make sense.
It does not exist. We need to be funding the people who live here, the people who are struggling the most, and like, you know, close that gap. In social you know, we can't continue to disenfranchise people the way that we are. We can't be racist and shitty So
Pick one.
and right.
No, for sure. I know. And it's amazing that you bring that up because I think that that's essentially it. And that's another thing. The people who are leaving the province are people who have money and the means to leave.
Boom.
Immigration is expensive. Even just moving from one province to another, it's an expensive thing. You have to uplift your entire life, uplift everything. It's a costly thing. So the people who are leaving the province are the people who actually have the means. Leaving those of us, you know, who actually care about the province and or are not, you know, economically able to leave the province, stuck here. So, oh hey Javier, how's it going? Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
How are you doing? Oh my gosh, it's so nice to see you.
You want to say hi? Okay, sweetie pie, what do you need?
That was actually really cute.
Oh,
Oh, what a sweet boy.
you guys can play Minecraft. If anybody fights, you're both going upstairs. Okay. That's just water? No, that's not water. Please don't play with it. It's just milk glass. Cake stand. Gabriel. Anyway.
We have to find a way to do both. Take care of the people without debt. That's the way to unlock the secret. Debt is gross. I don't know.
I agree that that is gross, but that would be a whole other conversation about why it's a problem.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like, that's the thing. We need to prioritize humans first. I mean, like, I know that this is really ignorant. I've said this many times whenever we talk about, like, when it comes to money, I'm not like an economist. I don't know this shit. However, what I will say is money is a made up thing. We've assigned pieces of paper and coins with value. It's a made up thing, but human lives actually do have value. Human lives actually matter. So if it's a matter of, you know, having an unbalanced budget over prioritizing somebody's health, I would prioritize the people's health. But I mean, I think that that's just like I think that's just a personal thing though. I don't know.
Okay. I would
Sorry?
agree with you. And I would say that, you know, anybody who doesn't agree that we need to prioritize people over money has like their priorities in the wrong order. And so with that, it is now 8:59.
Oh my God.
I know. I yelled at everybody for like an hour.
I also yelled. So it's okay. I actually sounded like Charlie Day at the very beginning. Oh my God! And I was like, I was watching Always Sunny earlier, and I was like, I sound like Charlie Day. This is very unattractive. But whatever. It's okay. I'm allowed to be shrill. But
Let's give ourselves permission to be shrill.
Yes. But thank you everyone for like such an awesome discussion. Honestly, Aranya, thank you so much for sharing your story. And Robbie, I honestly really enjoyed this. Like you brought up some really good points and I think it really helped us get our points across as well. So hope you come back next week, my friend. Yeah. Sorry?
I said, sorry, I yelled at you. This is correct.
She's sorry, Robbie. But yeah, no, honestly, thank you very much, guys. This is definitely like something that we've been meaning to talk about because seems like more shit is hitting the fan provincially. Oh, gorgeous eyes. Look at those eyeballs. I mean, those eyelids. It's not your balls. So beautiful. I love it.
Thank you to everybody who came to bear witness to
her beautiful makeup look. Does this mean that you're going to do your makeup every week?
I'm going to try, but I know that if I say, yeah, I'm going to do it, next week I'm going to be like, nah, I was tired.
Oh, well, okay. No pressure. As you know, it's like makeup is totally optional.
And look,
but I love it. It looks really good. All good. Thanks for the debate. You two are very strong. Oh, Robbie, you know that you're one of my favorite people on this planet. And I miss you. I really hope I get to see you soon. Stupid COVID. But yeah.
Everybody, thank you for tuning in.
I love you guys. Bye, Aranya. Bye, Z. Bye.
Okay, bye.